Hello, and welcome to Time Between Times storytelling with me, Owen Staton. Welcome to that time when the veil between our world and the fairy world grows wafer thin. So thin that for a few moments we can reach into their realm, and for a few moments they can reach into ours. Now is the time that people see lights in the sky. Now is the time that people see fairies. Now is the time between times. So sit back, relax, take a deep breath and lose yourself on a tide of tales traditionally told. Sit at the fire pit. Far away you can hear the howl of wolves, you can hear the growl of bears, but you know you are safe here at the time between times. Take a breath, relax, and listen as I tell you the tale of the great giant Rhitta Mawr. Many years ago and far away from here, there were two Welsh kings. They would argue until the cows came home every night. Who had the biggest field? Who had the most cows? Who had the biggest army? And one day this argument spilled out into open hostility. Both of them demanded that their armies meet on the plain of war, ready to fight. One army stood at the north, one army stood at the south, with a great plain in between them. With a roar and a cheer, they rushed forward to battle and fight to the death. But before they clashed in the middle, there came a great rumbling in the ground. The very earth shook, causing the soldiers to bounce up and down, their shields and their swords to fall from their arms. And there over the hill, with a greater army still, came the great giant Rhitta Mawr. He was as tall as a hill and as broad as a mountain, with a great beard that hung down to his waist. He carried a club as big as an oak tree, which he swung around his head with great might. He charged into the two armies, scattering them like ants in front of a torrent. At the end he stood victorious on the field of war, covered by the dead and the dying. He ordered that every beard be cut off every body, then he sewed them into a great cloak. And there he sat on his throne at the heart of the mountains, lord of the land. The other kings of Wales heard of this and could not put up with such behaviour. There were 23 of them in all, and they gathered a great army to march upon Rhitta Mawr, there in the heart of Snowdonia. They roared through the mountains, they passed over the rivers until they came to his land. They stood in one great line, but once again the ground started to shake, the mountains started to tumble, and Rhitta Mawr's army came plunging over the hills once more into another great battle. The 20 kings of Wales were all scattered and killed. Their armies fell before them like logs in front of an axe. And then he collected their beards until his cloak dragged along the floor for a mile behind his body. He sat on his throne with his great cloak of beards wrapped around him, king of all Wales. Or so he thought. Far to the south, he heard of one single king who had a famous blonde beard that he was very proud of. Rhitta Mawr sought more information about this king. Where was he from? What was his name? Where did he come from? His messengers told him the king was called Arthur. He wore golden armour and sat at a table round full of knights. "I must conquer this man," said Rhitta Mawr. He amassed his army, and they marched south, every step they take, shaking the ground as they walked. Arthur, far to the south, with a meagre 12 knights and 100 soldiers, thought that fate must truly be against them. But his courage knew no bounds. He called his soldiers, he called his men, and he met them at the table round. "No matter what happens, we must fight this giant and rid the land of his tyranny. Come with me. Gather at the field of battle. We will face him tonight, where I know there will be a storm." Arthur marched forth. The ground started to shake as Rhitta Mawr's army plunged over the mountains. Arthur's meagre force stood against them. "I asked for parley," shouted Arthur. "I will speak to you," replied Rhitta Mawr, who strode forth from his army. "Is this all that you bring to fight against me?" "No, it's not. How many men do you have in your army?" "I have more men than the stars in the sky above." What about you? At that very moment, in a stroke of luck, a storm started. Far away you could hear the rumble of thunder, coming closer and closer, like gods banging drums in the sky. And then lightning started, lighting up the sky. Rhitta Mawr looked around. He did not know what to think. The rumble you hear is the sound of my army approaching. They are so many that they number more than the stars in the sky. And that light that you see is the great light that fills the sky, gleaming from their shields in the sun. The army I bring from just over the mountain puts yours into shade. And tonight, collector of beards, you will surely fall to your doom. "Oh, no, no, no!" Rhitta Mawr was terrified. His heart started to beat so loud, he felt it would burst from his chest. He looked around. Oh, no! And then, like most bullies, he fell to his knees and begged for his life. The thought of a huge army smashing him and slaying him became too much. Arthur turned, wheeling his horse around, and pulled out his sword, Caladvalch, hard lightning. "I, too, am a collector of beards, but there is only one more that I want." "Well, tell me. I will give it you for my cloak. I will—" "The one beard I want, Rhitta Mawr, is yours, as a badge of your servitude to me, before my army comes over that hill." "Gladly, gladly, Lord King Arthur." Rhitta Mawr bowed in front of King Arthur, who cut off his beard with his sword and added it to his own cloak. He bade Rhitta Mawr return to the hills in Snowdonia and there guard the northern route into Arthur's kingdom. And that he did for many years, until he died in those hills, sitting on his cloak of beards, a great giant, but a servant to the wit and the wisdom of Arthur King. We all know what happened to King Arthur, who returned and became the greatest king Wales had ever known. But his trickery on that day echoes through the generations, and it's a tale that I tell you now. Diolch yn fawr am gwrando. Thank you very much for listening. Join me next time at the Time Between Times for more tales traditionally told. I also have a podcast, Time Between Times podcast, and also I co-host another called Spectre of the Sea. Please check that out. I am very proud of it. Also, I have a Patreon site. If you really want to support me, it's patreon.com/Owen Staton 7. Anything there is vastly appreciated. Thank you very much. Please like, subscribe, and I will see you soon at the Time Between Times. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you.